I've been deliberating about making this video for a while, for a couple of reasons. Firstly, who am I and who am I to tell you anything? Well, this video is just going to outline some of my ideas and sort of considerations of the current world and some of the things that I think are really challenging. I'm not an expert in anything, certainly nothing relevant to this video, but I have spent a lot of time reading, researching, thinking, discussing with people and with experts about this sort of stuff, and I just think that there needs to be another voice out there, you know, maybe acknowledging the doom and gloom, but also to try and highlight some hope and a bit of the, you know, maybe some practical things that we can do to try and sort of mitigate or help build resilience for ourselves in what is looking to be a pretty terrifying coming decade. Basically, there's going to be some stuff I say that you're going to disagree with. That's totally fine. I think it's a good thing, and we'll come to that in a minute. And I have got some notes here, so I'm going to be looking down at this laptop every now and again. I'm not super successful, I'm not an expert in anything, I'm not an influencer, I don't have any insider information, I'm not wealthy, I'm just a guy who has spent a lot of time witnessing things that have been happening and wanted to wade in on the cacophony of voices to hopefully provide a thread that maybe sounds familiar or sounds rational or reasonable or balanced. And this video is the first one I'm making like this, so I have made other videos in the past, but this is a new channel, and by the end of this video, if you enjoyed it, learned something, or even used it to fall asleep to, just give me a like and subscribe and let me know what you think and whether you want to see more. If somebody's getting something from it, I will keep making them because I feel like I have a lot to say. So I'm not going to waffle on too much more about why I'm making this video. The crux of it is that I feel like there is a lot of doom and gloom and a general sense of hopelessness, and what comes with hopelessness is a sensation of helplessness, and I think that that's the thing that I have the biggest problem with, is waking up in the morning and feeling totally helpless about what's going on in the world. Yeah, I wanted to try and bring a balanced voice and a sensible narrative, as well as some hope and some practical things that we as individuals can do at home on our own sort of individual basis to help ourselves. So if you're not interested in any of the background of anything that I'm going to say, if you just want the practical things, I will put a timestamp here somewhere in this video now to tell you when I start talking about that, because I'm going to waffle for a bit first. The idea is to make some suggestions for how we as individuals and we as communities can weather the coming storm. And by coming storm, I mean, I think we're going to see a big shift in the way the world works over the next 5 to 10 to 20 years for lots of different reasons. And I think that picking any individual reason to blame is a bit naive and a bit too simplistic, and I'm going to go into some of the big ones that I have been thinking about today and yesterday, but there's loads more, and I intend to probably make more videos about this kind of thing and how we can react to things, if that's helpful and if people want to. And if anybody wants to make any counterpoints, let me know. Again, really happy to discuss. And that's my first point. I feel we have totally lost the ability to be impartial. We as a species, as a society, cannot sit on the fence. It's not an acceptable thing to do anymore. If you don't have an opinion about something immediately, then you are vilified for that. You're not allowed to sit and digest information and think about things before you establish your perspective. We've really hit this air of, if you're not with me, you're against me. And I first witnessed this with Brexit, which was a seriously dividing issue here in the UK, and I think we saw the same thing in the US with the Trump-Biden election, and the same thing around the world with COVID and lockdowns. And it's this sudden extremism of opinion where it's become impossible to have a meaningful conversation with someone who does not agree with you, and it's in everything we do. So before we have enough information to make informed decisions, and before we have enough time to really think about the impacts of those decisions, like with Britain leaving the EU, I distinctly remember being told that I didn't understand because I didn't immediately agree with someone's position on it. But that was kind of exactly the point. I didn't understand. I'm not a specialist in geopolitics. I don't know all of the nuances of the Eurozone, and I don't think that anybody really could. So Obviously I don't understand, and it's fine to not understand and to want more information before making a major decision like that. I think we get hung up on taglines, especially with political campaigning, and again with the Brexit example, there was a lot of things that was like, right, this is my hill, this is the thing, this is the one thing that I will vote based on, irrelevant to everything else. And we're seeing it again. We often see it around immigration, which is an issue that maybe we'll talk about in the future. I kind of want to steer clear of politics in a sort of direct way. I'm happy to talk about the wider nuances, but really I want to look at context rather than content, if that makes sense. I'll come on to that in a minute. So I don't want to go into the pros and cons of Brexit or whether it was the right thing to do. Brexit is the content of that discussion, and what really concerns me is the context, and the context of not being able to be on the fence, not being allowed to be on the fence, not feeling free to be on the fence about things or to make an informed decision. And as a society or a populace, we seem to have lost our ability to evaluate and consider a situation before picking a side, if we even need to pick a side. And I think there are a lot of things we don't need to pick a side on. And this isn't necessarily the case for all things, but I think for a lot of the big ticket items in our world, it's a really significant issue. If you're a liberal leftist and you bump into someone that's a hardcore right winger, you just don't want to talk to them in any capacity. And I think losing that and being victim to echo chambers and social media and news algorithms where we're fed the same thing, and then we can't comprehend and we can't fathom why other people don't see it the same way we do. And it's because none of us have all of the information anymore. There is no such thing as truth. Truth is subjective. We've lost the objectivity of truth. It's a very subjective thing now. You can find a news article that will take a set of stats and it will support an argument that is contrary to the other argument that you've seen supported by the same set of stats. We can do this. We can manipulate numbers and statistics and facts if they're even there, and often we don't even bother looking for the facts. We just read a headline and that's it. We make our decision. I think we need to learn how to discuss again and have open conversations with one another, and especially with people that we don't agree with. And if you're out and about and you bump into somebody who has a different opinion to you, talk to them about it. Don't talk to them aggressively. Let's try and be calm and slow, and find out why they have that opinion. It might be that actually on a fundamental level you disagree with the same thing. You're just looking at it from two very different angles, but the problem could be solved for both parties. It's the same problem. We just have different perspectives on how to deal with it. And I think that's so much of our debates these days. Another example I don't really want to go into is COVID, and I think that was a really polarizing thing around the world, and really damaging for our collective psyche and capabilities of compassion. It caused rifts that tore apart families and friends and relationships, and it turned out it didn't really matter what your opinion was. It didn't change the way things played out. It didn't change the way that the money was made, and it did so much damage to people and to mental health and to entire swathes of generations who we will see those effects in the future. And so the point I'm trying to make really here is that we need to try to listen to one another, to be able to discuss and to empathise with positions that aren't our own, and extend compassion to people before we tell them what we think about it. And I guess I'm going to tag onto this section reconciliation and the ownership of being wrong, because this is something also that plays a part in this problem. If we're afraid of being wrong about something, then we aren't really open to understanding alternative positions. We stand by our decision even if it's wrong because we're afraid of being wrong. That doesn't make any sense. There's a lot of power that comes from ownership of mistakes. You're either winning or you're learning, and you can't do both. So you've got to get something wrong to learn from it. So test your opinions and test your theories and look at other arguments, and let's work together to grow together and expand our thinking on these things. That's the first thing. The second topic I want to talk about now is economic collapse and wealth drain and the squeeze out, or whatever you want to call it. And this is a big topic at the moment with rocketing prices of oil and the impact that will have on food and the price and the price and availability of fertilizer and the risks that that has globally. And there's some really good resources out there that look at this a lot better than I can. I highly recommend Gary's Economics. He's a really well-informed, experienced trader who has turned into sort of an activist and turned his attention to the wealth divide, and I really respect how he's held on to his morals throughout the transition from sort of a working class background into being a wealthy person, basically. He's encouraging great things for the UK, but it is just the UK, and I'll link some videos to him in the description. But the crux of it is that we're essentially globally over leveraged. Every country is in vast amounts of debt, and every person is likely to be in significant amounts of debt, and therefore everything can only get more expensive. And this is obviously a massive oversimplification, but even without the current situation in the Middle East, this trend was already happening. Our systems, both nationally and internationally, are built for efficiency and the profit that comes with it, and not built for resilience. And there was something I read recently, I think last year, when the Suez Canal was blocked, which was that the UK holds in stock only a week's worth of food, 3 days of fuel, and 24 hours of medical oxygen, and beyond that there is nothing left. And this is why the costs we see are so quick to increase, because there's basically no buffer in the system. If the price of fuel goes up today, the price of oxygen goes up tomorrow, and that has an impact on healthcare. So this combination of over leverage and minimal resilience means that every time there's a problem or a disaster or a situation, be it COVID or Brexit or war or a simple blockage in the Suez Canal, someone somewhere has to borrow some money to pay for that crisis, and to take up the slack, and the only money available is from the super wealthy elite. And governmental borrowing comes with bonds, which are used for individual profit. Fuel price caps are subsidised by the government spending. Personal loan is with the bank. The bank has tradable assets that is owned by somebody with a bigger sum of money, and so, as Gary puts it, there's this constant hollowing out of the working class and the middle class as wealth is drained from them via those means to the super wealthy. And this will continue until basically all of our money is gone, or there's a significant change in policy. And this scares me because the borrowing creeps into everything: car finance, phone contracts, student loans, your mortgage, your rent, any payments made in instalments. Even price capped energy bills exacerbate this problem. Your bills are fixed, so you feel more comfortable using the energy, but every sort of watt that you use is then subsidised by the government, who is borrowing that money to pay for that energy. And so we've hit this point now where basically through taxes, through student loan, through rent, through bills, 70 to 80% of your salary can go before you even see it. Maybe that's a problem that's only in the UK, I doubt it, but like that has a direct correlation on your time. If you work on an hourly rate or even on a salary, I don't know, say you work for £20 an hour, let's just say, for the sake of my maths, if you're losing 75% of that before you even see it, you're working for £5 an hour. So then to go out and spend £5 is like, what am I going to spend an hour of my life on? And I don't really eat out anymore or get takeout or anything like that. I don't really do any of those what I consider to be frivolous things, because the price is so high. And when you look at £20 for a pizza, that's actually like 4 hours of my life that I'm working to pay for that £20 pizza. I can make better pizza in 4 hours, so I just do that. Just go back to basics. It's so much easier, it's nicer, it's more fulfilling. You can do it with friends in the same way. Have friends over, make dinner for each other. Like that's a lovely thing to do. So this is a scary prospect, and something that I have felt until quite recently very helpless about. I have a bit of a plan, and we'll come to that shortly. There's one more topic I want to talk about first, which is AI. Okay. AI really plays on my mind a lot. There are loads of great resources out there on AI, and I'll link some in the description. I won't go into all of the individual things, but I will talk about trends, and if you want a really good starting point into AI and understanding some of the challenges, then I highly recommend Silly Conversations. It's a new YouTube channel, but it's absolutely taken off and does really interesting, digestible, entertaining, sort of almost short form content on it. So yeah, highly recommend that. By trade, I'm a carpenter. I was a carpenter for over a decade. In 2018, 2019, I fell off a scaffolding and broke 2 ribs in my back, which dislocated them from my sternum. I broke my hand and I cracked a vertebrae in my spine, and subsequently decided I wanted to change career, which I think is fair enough. The injury forced me to take time off, which meant I wasn't earning anything, which meant I was exposed to financial hardships and the risks of that. And luckily for me, this coincided with the beginning of COVID, so basically everything shut down and there was loads of mitigation efforts anyway. Those challenges for me weren't as bad as they could have been, but it really created a shift in my way of thinking. So I ended up starting a university course in 2022, which I'm just coming to the end of, literally 4 weeks left to go. And in a few weeks, hopefully, we'll be the proud owner of a robotics degree, which feels seemingly meaningless. 4 years ago, when I decided to do this, the growth industries were software and automation, and now, as I come out the other side of it, most of these things have been entirely absorbed into the AI bubble. Software, arguably, yes, I get that AI isn't going to take over, and I'm not going to go into this in too much detail, but the jobs where you would have once got an entry-level coder to do, you now just bang into ChatGPT and it's done in seconds. And really, there's going to be more demand for experienced people that can do those jobs and check all of that code, and less demand for people that can write it, the keyboard monkeys that are going to be starting out in that. There's basically no job prospects in software in the UK at the moment. Yeah, so that's only going to get worse as those systems improve. Not only that, but an AI system actually has way more value than you or I can ever have, at least commercially speaking. Cheaper energy than my domestic supply. Yes, they use a lot of energy, but they don't pay as much as I do for it. Cheaper water, greater access to cheaper water, and again, pay less. It doesn't need to be as high quality as what I would require. It can work 24 hours. It doesn't need to eat. Has more job opportunities, more resilience. They can live longer. They can learn faster. That industry is going to disappear. So I think the rest of us are pretty fucked. So it's a bit pointless focusing on that and to spend too much energy on it, as there's very little I can do about it apart from get on board. That isn't to say we shouldn't use people for things. I think that a lot of the damage that was going to be done by AI, especially to creative industries, has already been done, and I think we've seen a resurgence in people wanting creative things done by people. I think it's really important, and I think that's coming back now. You know, people find AI generated pictures and videos to be soulless, whatever that means, and maybe that's a confirmation bias or something, but I think the next thing on the block is logic based jobs. So that's going to be software, accounting, finance. I think if you're in those industries, your days are numbered. I guess I'll tag to that. I'm quite fortunate in that I do have a trade I can fall back on. Absolutely, I can go out tomorrow and get work as a carpenter. Building is always going to be there, at least for the next 10 years. So there will always be pockets in these industries that survive. It's essentially another industrial revolution, and until the dust settles, it's going to be unclear as to how and why we fit into it. When our systems became digital, there was entire swathes of industry that disappeared, and the same happened when we embraced computation and the internet. We no longer have need for typists, fax machines, the industries that built them, pages, floppy disks, VHS, and then DVD players have all gone. You know, there are so many industries that disappear and that are practically lost from the records because they get sort of basically irrelevant. We don't even think about them. I will probably look at AI in a bit more depth in future, if that's of interest. Basically, that's another thing that scares me. Those are the big three: the loss of impartiality and meaningful discussion, economic collapse and wealth drain, and basically subsistence living for working people, and the rise of AI and how that feeds into the second one, really. You know, it's basically, I guess, symptoms of the same problem. Okay, so let's go into the other side of it. Let's go into the mitigation. So for a while now, I've had this theory that everything basically boils down to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I'll stick it up on the screen here somewhere. And Maslow was an American psychologist who basically came up with this theory in the 40s, which has since been put into this pyramid. Anyway, my belief and my theory is that we can use this as a guide for building individual and communal resilience and hope and autonomy, personal autonomy, in this like tumultuous time. So let's just talk about that for a sec, and then we'll get to our practical implementations based on this concept. So at the bottom tier is the most fundamental things: food, water, shelter, sleep. And because those are the most basic needs, weirdly they get the least attention and have the least resilience. And again, there's like I said, there's like a week of food security in the UK, that's it. And water, I have this obsession about water and water quality. Water is the only industry in the world that isn't driven by supply and demand. It's a basic human right, so everybody has access to water and affordable water. If it was driven by supply and demand, it would be unaffordable for the majority of people. It's insane, the limits that we have on water. Future video. So that first tier of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, this is where I have my greatest concerns. Like I said, so many instances over the last few decades of water shortages and water quality problems and food quality problems. This is our biggest challenge in the future. Secondly, second level. So first level, basic needs. Second level, sort of safety and security. Let's just say for this tier, we'll say safety, health, well-being, environmental stability. Those are the big ones. Next tier, social connection, community, relationships, intimacy. And then we have self-respect, respect, competency, recognition, and then self-actualization, creativity, pursuit of meaning. And Maslow did actually put another tier on top of this later. He sort of bolted it on at a later date, but I think for our purposes and for the purposes of this video, we don't need to go into that. So what's the point of this? Okay, so I said I have some ideas for building resilience and improving ourselves and our capacity for resilience and for hardship, and it's all based on this triangle with a few rearrangements. The lowest level, I would say, are some of the most vulnerable things: water, food, shelter. We have increasing homelessness, increasing poverty, food poverty, fuel poverty, malnutrition. But food, water, shelter all directly impact our health and well-being. So I would also put health and well-being on that foundation sort of tier. Good health, good well-being is a result of those other fundamentals, so I consider that to be fundamental too. So what are the practical things we can do and prepare? Okay, let's put them up on the screen in a bit of a list as we go. I'm going to talk about a few different things, and there's a concept I lean on sometimes which is called double bubble. If you've not heard of double bubble, it's basically the idea of getting twice the value out of a single thing. So for instance, I benefited greatly when I was learning carpentry because I wanted to learn, and I was able to get a job on a building site where I could learn by watching and by doing things, and I was also being paid. So not only am I learning, I'm also being paid. That's double bubble. If you compare that now to me paying lots of money to be at university where I'm not earning, that's like a negative double bubble. I'm paying to learn and not earn. Okay, so onto the things we can do. These are basic. I'm going to go into more things in the future, in future videos, and like possibly even into the intricacies and the strategies for building this resilience and how it's scaled. Firstly, I implore you, if you're able to, improve your health. You don't need to be David Goggins, but it would be great if your body was resilient to illness and to injury. Healthcare is only going to get less affordable and less available. And the greater your resistance to illness and to injury, the greater resilience you are to building all of the systems that you're part of. This is something I'm going to be working on myself over the next couple of months, and I'll probably talk about this a little more, but this definitely isn't going to be a fitness channel. That's not the point. There are multiple factors to health, and some things you can't change, and if you can't change them, then fair enough. I appreciate that. Maybe lean more heavily on some of the other things I'm going to say. Things you can change, right? If you smoke, there's no upside. It's costly. It's going to kill you. End of story. So that's probably the biggest net gain you can make if you smoke. Quit smoking. Let's eat a bit healthier. Let's do a bit more exercise, especially if it can fit into a routine. So instead of driving to work, cycle to work if you can. It's cheaper and it's double bubble. Basically, you know, the purpose isn't to go out for a bike ride. I hate cycling, but I do cycle to uni and to work because in Bristol it's more efficient, it's faster, it's cheaper, and because I'm going anyway, I may as well double bubble and get the exercise. Your teeth, your eyes, your hearing, they're all fundamentally required, so look after them. Brush your teeth. I can't believe I have to say that. Dentists are extraordinarily expensive and you can't get any dental work done on the NHS, so yeah, look after your eyesight. There are eye exercises you can do if you want to. We'll talk about that maybe one day. I don't know. It's basically just go outside and look at things that are far away. It's not exactly exercise. Just look around more than staring at a screen. Look after your hearing, look after your lungs. If you do work on a building site like I did, wear ear defenders and wear a respirator, because those things you can't recover. Once they're gone, and I have experienced that directly. I don't know, maybe all of this is meaningless, but I think half of the time the battle is about removing the sensation of helplessness rather than actually being able to help yourself. And I do think that these things do help with that. The last thing is diet. Just like, you don't have to go on a diet, doesn't really matter, but try and reduce ultra processed food. There's some crazy shit out there that's sold as food. It's pretty much poison, and I'll actually probably do a bit of a dive into food in the future. In the meantime, I'm going to link a video about how, especially in the US, there is basically, it's a self-regulating industry. You have to declare if you've used something that's poisonous, and if you don't declare it, you're allowed to use it. It's not quite that simple, but link in the description. I'll tag it as food in the US. So on the topic of food, this is really a big one. This is one of the things that I'm actively working on. Try and grow some vegetables. That sounds really trivial, but don't do something boring like cabbage. Pick something that you like and genuinely enjoy eating, and then learn to grow it. And if everybody grew a little bit of food, the entire system would be so much more resilient. Can also connect you with nature and dirt, which has been proven to be good for your immune system and increase recovery times in hospital. And I should probably reference this stuff when I do future videos. I will try my best to reference everything that I say, because I think that's also important, talking about the subjectivity of truth. Like, I have read studies that have shown access to nature improves hospital recovery times by up to 50%. I think also growing food really helps us recognize the value of what we consume and all the hard work that goes into it, and should help us reduce our wastage, which in turn saves our wallets. So pick your favorite vegetable and try and grow it. If you don't have a garden, do it in a pot, in a window. Something I'm really enjoying learning about at the moment is hydroponics, which is basically growing food without soil. I currently have behind the camera a avocado sapling from seed in a bucket of water that is growing. It's about this big, in a hydroponic solution. And then my parents up in the Midlands have a avocado tree that's about 8 foot tall, which we also grew from seed. So it's just interesting, it's fun. Points 1 and 2, so your health and well-being and your food tied together very closely. The healthiest the UK has ever been was post Second World War, during rationing, where basically everybody was forced to eat a balanced diet because that was all that was available. You ate a balanced diet or you starved. It was a centralised system for managing our health, our weight, our resources, and whilst nuanced, it was successful. If you wanted extra, you grew it, and it encouraged loads of people to grow fruits and vegetables at home. So let's do that. We can do it. It's really, really easy. Pick something easy. Pick something like kale. You can grow it outside, or tomatoes or peppers. You can grow peppers in a pot, and that's like, why not grow a chili pepper? Okay, the third thing we can do, somewhere up here, is social connection. And this really stems from the first topic I was talking about, with the loss of impartiality. It's very easy for us to fall into echo chambers, especially through social media and algorithmic news. There's a lot of benefits to real life social interactions, and you don't have to go and strike up a political debate with somebody on the bus, but at least smile at them, say hello. It genuinely makes a difference to how you feel and how they will feel. Further to that, start creating a community, start making friends. Take up a sport if you enjoy them, make friends with your team. That's double bubble with fitness. If it turns out you really enjoy growing food, encourage your neighbours or friends. And maybe you can't eat 100 tomatoes, but if you grow tomatoes and someone else grows peppers and someone else grows an aubergine, well, then you've got the start of a decent ragu for pasta. So, you know, you can all share and support each other and be more social, have communal meals, have discussions, have debates. I guess built into social connections is finding a hobby. You can't really just look at a list and pick one. It doesn't really work like that. It requires exposure and testing. But that's fine. Go and try something. Be bad at it. You'll either work out that you like it, even though you're bad at it, or you'll work out you don't like it. And both of those things are a victory. It's fine to be wrong. It's fine to admit that you don't know what you're doing. I think that's really important. You can't always be right. If you're always right, you're never doing anything new. So yeah, ask questions. If you don't like reading instructions, find a YouTube video or listen to a podcast. Hobbies come in all forms, but they are only hobbies when they're intentional and when they're deliberate, so be deliberate. If what you really love doing is playing video games or watching TV, then do those things, but do them with intention. Talk to people about them, investigate why you like them, investigate what you find interesting and what you don't. Passion is a fundamental pillar of respect and confidence at that third level of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So be passionate about something. Make a coherent argument about it. Contrary to my first point about health and well-being, I'm a bit of a drinker. I do enjoy a drink, and as you can see from the copious amounts of bottles behind me, but I brew my own wine and beer and cider, perry, and I brew it from food that I've grown and haven't been able to use in time. I've experimented with things. I made a really, really, truly awful carrot wine a few years ago and shared it with my friends at my dance class, and everyone hated it and was the subject of ridicule, but that's totally fine. I enjoyed it. It was very entertaining. You know, here's this thing I've made, try it. Yeah, it's awful. Like, that was good fun, and it inspired me to try again and prove that I wasn't bad at it. And the following year I made a blackberry wine, and the blackberry wine was a lot better. So building communities around us creates resilience through support networks. Maybe you don't have a safety net from parents or from family or siblings or whatever, but you can create one through friends, through neighbours. It's more cost effective to cook larger meals, so invite people over for dinner and share that load sometimes. Or, you know, oh, my car's got a flat tyre, I need a jump start, who can I call? You know, if you're friends with your neighbours, that's really, really easy. So just build those community systems. That's 3. The fourth thing is, I struggled to write this one, and this is something I struggle with really as well, so I'm going to just spin through it and probably articulate it more effectively in a future video. Suddenly got really sunny. Reduce your materialism. So this is a weird one for me to say because I very clearly have quite a lot of crap behind me, but bear with me. So stuff is expensive in more than one way. It's expensive when you buy it, but it's also expensive to store, to move, and in ways that aren't directly monetary. So something that is sort of fairly well accepted is that clutter creates cognitive load, and cognitive load directly impacts how we experience life. And often we don't need all of the stuff. We've just been told to buy it through social pressure or marketing, targeted advertising. I do have quite a wide range of things. I'm a carpenter, so I have tools and clothes from work, but I also collected old bits of wood, like some kind of deranged beaver, because sometimes you just hate to see things go in the skip, and you think that you can do something with it, and then suddenly you find that your garage is piled up with old bits of wood and you've got to move house and you just have no idea what to do with everything. That has to stop for me personally, and like I said at the start, I'm just beginning this journey. This is like, I haven't got all the answers. I'm not majorly successful at this, but I'm bringing you along for this ride because I believe it's important and I believe we can help ourselves here. So I'm a carpenter, but I'm also a robotics engineer, so I have tools and equipment associated with that. I brew my own booze, so I've got all of the equipment associated with that. Vast quantity of horrible wine that nobody wants to drink, which I can't bring myself to put down the sink yet. Basically, I've got a lot of stuff. Okay, so what do I mean by reducing materialism? Right, so this is also conflated with consumerism. You don't need a new phone. I don't have a new phone. You don't need a new car. I drive a 2008 VW Polo, and that's not mine. You don't need new stuff. I buy most of my clothes from Vinted because I hate shopping. There's still a storage cost and there's a cognitive load that comes with clutter. So if you ever need to move house, it's multiple trips as opposed to just one. I'm not saying be a minimalist. Nobody likes minimalism. Minimalism is just big, small, trying to sell you more or less. But I think that there is a cost benefit to stuff. So look at that cost benefit. Instead of paying the leverage, the finance cost on a new phone, I have an old phone that I bought outright, secondhand, and that works. It's actually what I'm recording this on, so the camera is pretty good. If your phone is really important to you, then obviously don't take that aspect of this away from this video, but pick something else. There are loads of things that we own that aren't important to us and we just own them anyway. So just look at the cost benefit of stuff, basically, is what I'm trying to say. The fifth thing, this is a really big one. I say this a lot to lots of different people. The fifth thing is slow down. And this takes practice and takes patience and comes from building resilience into things we do. So if we think of resilience as a buffer, for instance, if I need to go and do something and it's a half an hour drive away, I'll give myself an extra 15 or 20 minutes to get there. Not because I think it's going to take that time, but then if I get caught up in traffic, who cares? It doesn't matter. I've got plenty of time. I can let you out of a junction, or if someone cuts me up, it doesn't matter. Maybe they need to get to the hospital because somebody they care about is there, or maybe they just really need a poo. But I don't mind. I'm taking extra time to get there. I'm relaxed. I'm taking it slow. But I'm also learning. I'm listening to a podcast. I'm thinking about something. I'm talking to my grandma. In the evening, maybe I need to do the washing and cook a balanced meal and work out and do my taxes and send an invoice and pay a bill. But that's a ridiculous number of things to try and do in one evening and can only lead to cognitive overload. So just slow down. Do one thing. It still needs doing, but just pick one of those things, and one thing a day is way better than everything in one day because you've let it build up, and it's way more sustainable. It builds resilience into our actions. If I do one thing today, that's one less thing to do tomorrow, and if I do one thing every day, there's going to be days when there's nothing to do. And if there's days built into my system where there's nothing to do, it means if I have a bad day, if I'm ill, if I'm injured, if there's an emergency, I'm already on top of everything else, so I've built in that capacity. So, long video, new channel. I don't know how this will be received. Maybe it's really boring. Maybe you don't like it. Maybe this direct one-to-one conversation isn't very interesting. Maybe no one will ever see it, but maybe it's not helpful. I don't know. Maybe you think I'm an idiot, and that's totally fine. If you do, tell me, because that's how I learn. That's how I get better. If you think everything I've said is wrong, I'm fine being wrong. Help me learn. That's what I want to do. It'll help me be less of an idiot in the future. As I said before, I'm not an expert. I'm exploring these topics and I'm trying to find simple, practical ways that we as individuals and as communities can build our own resilience, because it's clear that no one else is building it for us. Next time you're out, smile at somebody, say hello. The next time you read some clickbait headline, just wait, just think about it. Think about it critically. Is that really real? Can that really be real? If it is real, does it really matter? We don't need the 24-hour news cycle. Let's, I don't know, go back to broadsheet. Let's not do that. Just think critically, reflect on whether or not it matters to you, and if it does matter to you, reflect on why and how it might be different if you were in a different situation and what that situation would look like. And then if that means it's less impactful, let's look at getting to that situation. You can come and tell me, do some research about things. If you read something and you don't like it, do some research about it and then come and tell me about it. I'll listen. I like listening and I like learning, so yeah, let's do that. I'm happy to have a discussion with you. I don't know, maybe this ends up being like a call-in, a live chat where we can pick a topic and you can come and tell me that you think I'm wrong about it, and I can learn from you, and then I can tell you why I think the way I think, and maybe you can also learn from me. Maybe we can learn from each other. Think of this space as a new community that you can be part of. I don't care who you are or where you come from. I'm interested in what you have to say and what you have to do and what you care about. Over the next few weeks, I'm going to try and explore some more of these concepts in more depth. I'm also doing exams, and so I don't know how often I'm going to be doing these things. It's very ad hoc at the moment, but I'll let you know the progress I'm making towards these goals. Like I said, I've got a little avocado tree growing in the corner of my kitchen, and I just planted some carrots and some kale in the garden, which are not my favourite vegetables, but they're easy to grow, so that's how we learn. Yeah, I think I'll let you know what has worked for me and what hasn't, and importantly why it hasn't worked, and if it's a winner, great, and if not, at least we're learning from it. And then you let me know what's worked for you, what you suggest, whether you can think of other ways of building resilience into systems. That's the bit I want to focus on. What can we do as individuals and as small communities to protect ourselves against the madness that is ensuing across the world? I think that's all I'm going to say.
thanks for watching. If you got this far, I mean, you're a hero. Yeah, let me know what you think, and let's talk about some stuff, and let's if we can't fix the world, let's at least fix our own small environments. Let's make ourselves safer. Peace out.